I am Justin Kahn, founder of Justin.tv. Right, Justin.tv is a site that lets anyone broadcast and watch live video online and share it with friends and chat about it, live, interact with the host. And just, yeah, that's basically it. Sure. That was it. That was really it. So when we started, it was totally different. For those that know the story, well, actually, I'll just tell from the beginning, right? So, like, basically, we had this idea. We thought, okay, we could. What if we created a live reality TV show of streaming one person's life to the web? And so we were set out to do that. We actually raised some money from Y Combinator to do it, and it wasn't really a business at first, but we were sitting there with Paul Graham and Robert Morris, who two of the partners in Y Combinator, and we're like, okay, we have this idea. We actually went to pitch an entirely different business, and then we ended it. They didn't like that one. They were like, well, what else do you have? And we had this idea about this Justin TV show. It wasn't really a business, and so I remember Robert said to me, well, I'll fund that just just to see you make a fool of yourself. And I was like, okay, then I guess we have to do it. So we spent all this time developing this technology, that like basically a mobile broadcasting camera, and we set up the site as a show about us, the four of us, me and my three co-founders, Michael, Emmett, and Kyle, and then we launched with that, and there was really no master plan. Like honestly, people always like think, oh yeah, you were gonna do this like site that like would let anyone broadcast live video, and we were like, well, if we thought of that, we should have had that ready to go when we launched the show, but we didn't. So it took like 6 months for us to transition the site after we launched. Oh yeah, I mean, we thought of ideas like we could get sponsorships, and we actually even had a few sponsorships in the beginning, which was amazing. Although they were like not, making us money, very much money, or anything like that. So we had the idea, like if it got really big, if you get like 1 million people to aggregate anywhere on the internet, you can make a ton of money off of it. So yeah, it was like kind of a novelty, right, at the time. Like it wasn't really technically feasible to do on the internet when we did it. Um, Even just making live video work on the internet was extremely difficult, and actually has that's one of the big problems that we tackle. And so it was a novelty. There was kind of the human aspect of like one person streaming their life, like and then people picked up on that. It got covered in a lot of like news outlets, and it was on MTV and the Today Show and G4 and a ton of other things. And then people started watching it, and then we kind of went from there. No, we were pretty shocked actually. I thought it would grow slowly, maybe. What happened PR press wise, at first, the first thing that happened was we got a tech crunch because we had done this Kiko calendar, right? Which is a we can go into later, but like we had another startup and then we stopped that. So it was kind of interesting that these startup guys would do this like website, right? Um, so we got a tech crunch, and then we were covering some blogs, and then the next week it was like local San Francisco news, like Channel 5, and then the next week after that, there was like a Chronicle article, like San Francisco Chronicle front page article. And then after that, there was like a lot of news, like a lot. Well, the Chronicle, actually, the local TV was just because they had heard about it. Um, I think like they read it on the internet, and they were like, oh, it's San Francisco, so that's interesting. And then the Chronicle was from Oh, we had known, actually, we knew one of the reporter who was like, she had done another story on like startups, and we had talked to them about that. She was like kind of a friend, so had been writing this story actually kind of from day one, and then it came out then. Yeah, she kind of hooked us up. Yeah, yeah. From a PR perspective, it definitely did. Um, the way media like stories work like that is like you would think that once it breaks, it's like not interesting, but like it kind of comes in a wave, in waves, like of smaller, like bigger and bigger like sources, until it's like everywhere. No, it's like that's how it happened. That yeah, it like built on each other after the Chronicle story. There it was like on, like the Newswire, and then like other people started picking it up, and then we got like it was on everything. It was like on current TV. It was on G4, like I said, on MTV, on like Nightline, on MTV, on the Today Show, on like a bunch of foreign stuff that like I don't even remember. Like at the time, I mean, I would wish we had more data on that, but at the time, we were like just struggling to keep the site up. So we actually don't really have a very good picture. Although I can tell you that like all of them pale in comparison to the Yahoo front page. Um, I think G4 was like a big one, but everything pales in comparison to the Yahoo front page, and all of that pales in comparison to what we do now. Like it's all a drop. Like news stories now don't even make a blip. Yeah, at the very beginning, it was like a couple 100,000 uniques, on these major sources, and then like that would be pretty amazing. Like I think Dig was really way bigger though. Like a lot of the offline media doesn't actually drive any traffic. I think that was in June or July. There's a story with Kevin Seitz actually, um, who did this story on like live broadcasting. Yeah, yeah, definitely did. Well, a lot of them. Sorry, some. It's hard to say. It wasn't very many. Like I think the problem was that like in the beginning, to be honest, the show wasn't very interesting. It's kind of like interesting on a meta level, but like I'm not like that interesting of a guy. I'm not like a clown, right, or a comedian or something like that. I'm not a, I, I'm kind of just a random, normal guy. So like it wasn't like I was living this phenomenal entourage life, running around like you know, living the dream. It was more like it was me and these three other guys living in this like dirty apartment, trying to figure out what we were doing. So it was a lot of fun. I mean, people stuck. The good thing about it was that we really built up this community in the early days, and like kind of built up all these people who are actually still on the site, like moderating, broadcasting, watching, like thousands. Yeah, 10,000 maybe. Probably thousands. Probably thousands. Yeah, but- yeah. But I would say that that's yeah. You could register and chat. Chat was a big part of it, right? That's how people kind of knew each other and communicated. We also had a forum, I think, on the site. Yeah, yeah, that was the cool thing. People like community is really important. Like one of your most powerful things is community, right? And like having people who actually like will do stuff on to make the site better, to get other people on the site. That's like amazing. Also, it makes you feel good about working on something for so much time. Put so much effort into something. It's like about a month. About a month after we were pretty sure, hey, we should like actually build this into a site that lets anyone broadcast. Well, I mean, I'd say a month in, it was extremely obvious. Like, we didn't see our traffic growing consistently without like news stories. So it's kind of like, how do we make this not just a novelty? And yeah, that was the big thing actually, was that people were like, I don't know how to do live video online. Like, how do I do what you've done? So, yeah. We couldn't handle the scale. We didn't know anything about scaling websites, so we kind of had to learn everything. Um, so that was a big part of it. I mean, I wish, in retrospect, it would be good to like have it lined up, ready to go. It would also be good if the technology was flawless from day one. But we spent like 3 years really building our technology to the point where it is like rock solid, and we can support hundreds of thousands or a million concurrents. Um, and I could talk about scale a lot if you want later. But yeah, it wasn't. It was kind of a learning curve for us from the technical side as well as like the product side. Yes, yeah, the site went down a lot. Yeah, there's a huge pent up demand for broadcasting. Like, lots of people wanted to broadcast. Whether those people were that interesting to other people, it's an entirely separate question. I think, the lesson there is like definitely trying to hits, pick hits is not, it's like, that's a hard business to be in. And people told us that actually. So, definitely opening up, when we opened it up to everyone, that was like a huge, you could see a turn in the traffic. And we opened up at the end of '07 in October, but we added like a bunch of social features in '08, actually, like a kind of my Facebook like social networking features on the site, which I think, gave people a reason to register, stuff like that. We also, like, over time, we're improving the broadcasting system a lot, so that's something that's contributed to it. Like, stable, making the live videos stable and always work is like a surprisingly hard problem online, or has been. And so, for almost all companies actually, and that was a big thing that we spent a lot of time working on. Yep. Those were the big ones. I would say that, like, if you looked actually at our traffic in 2008, it was, 1 month would go up, and then the next month would be flat. The next month would go up and then be flat, and that's really because of scaling. Like, it was pretty clear we would like be fine, and then we'd have to like scramble and scale, and then we'd be fine, and then we'd have to scale, and like, so it'd be like, that was a big thing. Like, that happened like 6 cycles in a row or something, like all from 2008. You could see like 1 month up, 1 month flat, 1 month up, 1 month flat, and it was like, that was yeah, that was huge. Yeah, there were other sites. I mean, we have competition right now. Um, I think we were. I mean, most of almost in, what we worried about the most is like, just how are we doing, like what are we doing, like, I guess if people are going to switch, like, having the best service with the most uptime, like, which we do now, and we did, quite frankly, we do have historically, even though it was like pretty bad historically, we've always been like the best at scale. And I think that's why we are in the game, to be honest. Like, I think that's why people use Justin.tv, and like, why we're the biggest live video site, is that the site scales. um, so it's not so much a worry about like, our competitors going to pass us, because quite frankly their services are like, they they could work on their scale a little bit more, I think. But I think it was more like, are people just gonna like not want to do this at all? Like it's a very frustrating experience when you're trying to broadcast and then it like doesn't work, you know? So my co-founder has been the CEO since the beginning. He's so Mike Seibel is the CEO right now. Yeah. So we kind of, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about how we divide up stuff, but you know, he's been with the company since the start. Sure. Right. Yeah. Uh, yeah, we had some users. We had thousands of users um, by the end, but like it wasn't anything super, you know, like in terms of like user growth. It's hard for a calendar to be, you know, really viral. So yeah, while there were users, I'm not sure that it wasn't like a very heavily used site. You know, I think it was like 12, 14,000 on Alexa or something like that. You know, it's like not really changing the world, but it was fun to work on. I learned a lot. Well, you know, so we thought about so I would never like I wouldn't advise anyone to work on a calendar alone, a standalone calendar, because you know that's like it's calendar is part of a productivity suite. Like you know, when we started working on that, we it was kind of like Justin TV. We just like, hey, this would be a cool idea, and it was a cool idea. I mean, clearly, like Google Calendar is used by tons of people, right? Like, and there's other calendars that are used by tons of people that are very similar. So I think it was a good idea, but I definitely think it belongs as a part of like a suite of tools. So when Google Calendar came out, it was pretty clear like everybody wanted it with their Gmail. That makes sense. So we were thinking like, how can we actually make this useful as a product on its own? And you know, we thought of a lot of things. We thought like maybe you forward your travel documents to it and it becomes a travel calendar, or maybe it's like a TV guide, or maybe it's you know, and none of the ideas really were things that we thought would like really be significant. And so we also realized as two guys with two part-time employees, like we don't really like using calendars. What are we doing? Like to work on something you want to do, you know, like this doesn't make any sense. So we decided to take the, you know, easy way out, I guess, and and ended up selling the company on eBay or assets. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's pretty fair. No, I mean, I think that's like really, it was a great experience to learn about that. And like, I did that startup very poor. Like, Emmett and I worked on that startup and we like didn't know anything about startups. We didn't know anything about writing web applications and we didn't really know anything about the web or like how the web works. So, it was an amazing experience from the perspective of like being able to understand the idea that you can like create something online and just put it up and like people will use it. And like, you can create something and you could charge someone for it. I mean, we didn't do that. Or you can like, you know, there's lots of different business models. It was like an introduction to like actually having a web business. And like I had no idea how you would do any of that previous. And so with Justin TV, we did things a little bit better. You know, we raised a little bit more money. Well, actually a lot more money. We kind of like figured we've done we grew to a bigger scale. You know, we have like um, the company's like much bigger now. You know, we've learned a lot more, but I could never have learned what I learned through Justin TV and what I have learned. I mean, what I'm learning without having done the previous step, right? You know, would have been hard. Yeah, absolutely, hands down. And everything that I've learned at Justin TV, has helped me, will help me in whatever I do in the future. Like even if, if the company, like, I don't know, an earthquake swallowed up all four of our co-location facilities tomorrow or something, and there was like nothing left, and like the code base was erased. Like I would still count that as like an extremely valuable experience and something that I'm like wouldn't trade for anything. I mean, I think that's like a pretty healthy attitude for like most people doing startups, because the odds are you're going to end up with, empty pockets at the end. So no, like learning, I had to learn this like entirely. I mean, everything we've learned about the internet, or like everything I've learned about startups, has been through the process of doing them. Like nothing before. I mean, I guess like critical thinking, like, problem solving, basic communication skills with others, but it's not like I worked on physics and philosophy, and that didn't have anything to do with anything I'm doing now. And, in school, and we started the startup right after I graduated from school. So it's been like 5 years now. I guess I've been doing this like startup stuff, and I'd say it's all been learning on the job, right? In this pursuit of traction. Yeah, yeah, I guess. I mean, the thing is, like, you could always grow faster. You could always be better at scaling. I mean, you could, right? Like, it's not it's you it's hard to, like, hindsight is 2020. There's like thousands of things we could have done better. Like I could go on for years about stuff that we could have done better, or we could do better, or we could be doing better. But I don't know. Just I don't have any good. Yeah, there's lots of stuff that we probably could have done. Yeah, definitely. Many of our problems have been scale. I mean, I would say that there's like, things that we could have focused on certain things more, like things that worked. You always like try things and they don't work, but like, could you have avoided that? I don't know. Probably not. Yeah, yeah. It's tons of bottlenecks. Yep. Well, I mean, we would like, right, we would rewrite things. We like sometimes the answer is like rewriting, and that involves like sitting down and like actually planning something, right? It wasn't always like, oh, let's just patch on more servers. Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of it was because, with live video, a lot of when it's live, like a lot of people are watching at one time. So kind of, I heard from a friend that like monster.com, the lunch hour has like 10 times as much traffic as, it does baseline. And most websites are like 1.5 times peak to baseline, right? So like your peak is like one and a half times whatever your base, your values are. With live video, it's like we would get 10x or 20x, right? And then it's like, how do you plan for that? The site would blow up, like, and that's very stressful. It was like, we'd get phone call, or we'd get like text messages from Pingdom like all the time on the weekends and stuff like that. It was like it was horrifying, but eventually you do figure out ways to do it, to solve it. I'd say it's still a work in progress. We have full-time people who work on metrics now. We measure everything. We measure um, every link. Every time anyone shares a link, if you copy the URL bar and then paste it to someone, we like append a hashtag, a tracking hashtag, like as soon as you visit pages, so that we can tell if you like copied out of the URL bar and like share it with a friend, right? Like we want to measure everything we do now, because we spend a lot of time not measuring, and like that, quite frankly, is a waste of time. Like people told us at the beginning, people were like, you should measure everything, measure as much. I would say we're still in the process of really getting our hyper measurement working perfectly. Like we have seen like a lot of awesome gains. Like we just rewrote. I think there was an article on TechCrunch about this maybe a month ago or a couple weeks ago. We rewrote our broadcaster process of like getting people to broadcast and increased it by 14x or 7x. Sorry, 700%. Um, and that was like that's an amazing conversion increase, and we did that all through measurement and through experimentation. And so, it's a matter of doing that type of thing, especially if you have, I mean, for Justin TV, like we apply all those things to growth, but I can imagine if we had a site that actually, God forbid, charged people money, this would be an amazing investment, ROI on our investment. International has always been high growth for us. A lot of people use the site in Europe and in Latin America. And we support a lot of different languages. We actually created a system before Facebook created their system that like allowed like a wiki translation of by their users. We actually had something that was pretty similar. That we've never done marketing internationally. I think the translation was the biggest thing. Like you can see, I think we implemented that in like March or February of '08, and that was actually probably it's kind of at the same time as the other stuff, so it was hard to tell, whether that was an inflection point. But I would say that that was something that anecdotally it seems really helped. Sure, I mean it really depends on what your site is, right? But like you should understand the ways people use your site and share it, and like what are the ways that like the most important thing is to have a good understanding of the entire ecosystem. So like whether people are sharing your links on Twitter or Facebook, or they're getting through there through SEO. I mean, there's tons of stuff like this on Hacker News, right? Like that you should understand all these things and then you should optimize them, and you should do it with data. Like I mean, I feel like I'm not really telling anything new, but like for example, we increased our shares like 500% or something like that by just decreasing the depth that you had to go to like share. Um, just like whatever, there was like a menu that was kind of buried underneath one menu option. We just move that to the top and it's open automatically when you go to a channel page. So if I go to like some random page on Justin TV, there's like options right under the video that are like share. Seems pretty obvious, right? But like, you can measure it and then you can know, hey, I increased it by this amount. Like it's pretty clear. Um, you should invest. It's like a pain in the ass to invest the time to do good measurement, like split testing and tracking everything. But you should really do that. Like it's actually worth it. Like if you're, I will never do another project where I don't do that in the beginning. That's like a serious business, right? Like if I'm maybe on my blog, I don't need split testing, but like if I have something that I actually think is like worth pursuing, that's going to make money, like that's what I would do first. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, maybe not first in the sense that I would do some customer development and build something like that actually people wanted. But when you get to the point where you're like figuring out what's next, what to build, what people like about your product that's kind of working, then like having very good instrumentation is extremely important. And like, you'd be surprised that like we've examined like a lot of third party tools and like haven't really found stuff that like really is that great. But we've used a lot of things too. I mean, we'll try to test things also before we actually have to do a significant investment in building them. I mean, this is all like lean startups stuff. We'll do stuff where like for example, we instead of building a new front page, we wanted to build a new front page to like encourage broadcasting, and instead of building it, we just like made a Photoshop mockup and then like put it on an image map and then had people click on it through Mechanical Turk, like click on an image, like where would you go to click to like to try to broadcast, and then we saved ourselves a bunch of time making implementations of a bunch of things. You know, our SEO is pretty horrible, quite frankly. We get, you know, it's like all referrals, people sharing links. Um, that's basically that's basically it. We try to encourage people to share a lot, which I think we could do a much better job of that, quite frankly. Like we're, you know, that's something that's still a work in progress, I think. No, I mean, we measure it, but we need to improve it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, you know, I would say there's like major changes and minor changes you can make, right? And so you want to do the things that have the most impact per like your time. So make a list. Like, you know, they can be a list of minor changes could be like change the colors of the buttons that of sharing or the text or like put them in a different location on the page, that type of stuff. So, you know, those things can make a difference, but they're probably not going to be very substantial. And then there's other things that are like product features or, you know, new methods of sharing. Maybe like we think MySpace sharing is going to be really big and bigger than Facebook sharing. You know, that is kind of like questionable hypothesis. However, if we wanted to test it, you know, we just implement it, make sure we're tracking the sharing, and then like actually and throw it on a page for a bucket of users, and then see what the results are. You know, wait and see, and then repeat with like everything that you can possibly think of that you think will have a major impact. So like I think we have something like 40 experiments sketched out for to do on the flow of getting a user to become a broadcaster, and we want to do all of those, and then for each of them, we want to look at the retention rates of the broadcaster afterwards. We want to look at the virality of the broadcaster afterwards. We want to look at how many, you know, and the conversion rates to the process and see how they affect all those things, and then we can make an intelligent decision on whether to keep it or not. Yeah, to some extent, I guess we were riding a wave. We're riding a wave that's clearly, you know, you can tell because there's multiple live video sites that have all grown. Like, not all of them have grown as fast as Justin TV, and we're still the largest live video site. But you know, it's pretty clear that there's a lot of demand for it. There's demand from advertisers who want to like incorporate live video into their campaigns. There's demand from users who want to broadcast live video, and there's demand for viewers who want to watch live video. So I would say that like it's kind of like uh, Twitter in the sense that like it's a new form of communication that that's got created that like clearly people started using and they want to use because there's value there. Unlike you know maybe um, you know like there's other businesses like a Google AdSense blogs like spam blogs, right? You put those online and like they get used, but there's like it's not clear that people it's anything new that people want to use. Um, so so I think that yeah, in that sense, like we're not really responsible for like creating this like they're like forcing all these people. It was something that like maybe would have happened without us. Yeah. No, yeah, I totally agree. I think that we've been surprised every time. Every order of magnitude we've grown, we've been like, this has got to be the limit. Like, there aren't that many people out here who want to use this app, you know, after this. Now we get like 30 million uniques to the site every month, to the site and the, you know, the network, the embeds and everything. And that's like, we're like, oh, I guess there's a lot of people. So we're trying to get the next order now. Uh, I mean, people, it's like, I'm not that surprised, I guess. It's like, you know, it's not like we invented Twitter, I guess. Like Twitter is like something entirely new, right? Like live video, like people watched live video before. People were watching video. It's like not that much of a stretch. The idea that you would chat and communicate in real time around the live video to each other and then to some, I mean, it's kind of like something similar to what you would do if you're all sitting around watching TV together, or it's similar to somebody, you know, chatting on, there were like other live video kind of, um, there's iChat, and there's like there were a lot of like desktop things for broadcasting, stuff like that. So it's not like we invented a wheel or something like that. Well, I think so. I think the best ideas. Well, I don't know. I think Justin TV is kind of an exception. Like, I wouldn't like recommend that people use like, you know, yeah. Well, the way we thought of Justin TV, I mean, we were driving around thinking about what to do with Kiko, and we were like having a brainstorming discussion. I was like, huh, I wonder if it'd be interesting if anybody ever like if for people to listen in on this conversation. And so that kind of turned into, I wonder if you could have like a full, like a one, always on audio feed of somebody. And then then I was like, huh, I wonder if you could have an always on video feed of somebody. And then that turned into, I wonder if you could have an always on live video feed of somebody. And then we were like, we could call it Justin TV. And then that was the inception of the idea. And so I don't know. I mean, I can't really speak to like how do you come up with this like amazing powder keg idea. I think it's just like to some extent it's like look online, right? There's like so many ideas that are happening online. Some of them have got to be good. So many crazy ideas, right? If I were to start something today, I would definitely try to think about it a little bit more, maybe do a little more planning and like think like, hey, is this something that really solves a very critical problem for somebody? I mean, that's like everybody says that, right? But like, I think that's important, right? If it solves a problem for someone, then you're doing something good. Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. For press, I could speak for a long time about it, but I think for like the kind of new entrepreneur or like somebody who hasn't gotten a lot of it, the most important lesson that we've learned is like you should have a point with your PR and your press, like and your communications in general. We have a full-time VP marketing at Justin TV who like does communications like a lot, right? Like, but before we had that, like we did a lot of different things, and like just the most important thing is to actually know that like have a point, like you should have a message that you're trying to get across, otherwise it's not valuable, right? So maybe that message is like we have a product that solves this certain problem, or and you like you want to think about your audience, right? So like maybe your message on TechCrunch is like to get like we're a hot company solving a problem in like very growing space so that investors will come invest in us, right? Or maybe your message is like into the advertising industry and you want to get an ad age and you want to say like, hey, this is a great way to reach your consumer, like to reach consumers with a brand message, right? Like whatever, but it doesn't make any sense to just go around talking to anybody about anything. Like my message here, like, if we consider this PR, what am I talking about? Well, I've been talking about scaling. And the reason I'm talking about scaling is because we have interesting problems at Justin TV and we're a big site. And that's what we care about getting across, especially to people who are like, young hackers who are interested in working on big, interesting scale problems at a big site. Like, so it's very important that you think about like, what's the actual point of this? Like when I started off, we were like super flattered to get asked to do anything, right? Like to be in any PR or story or anything like that. So it was very much like, we'll talk to everybody and like, what's the message? It's kind of like, we'll just figure it out, right? It wasn't like very thought out, but you should like come up with goals, concrete goals for like what you actually want to tell the press and what's the end point and what's the message, and then like bring that out in the stories. Like, so if you release new features and that's a story, then it's like each new feature should contribute to the ultimate goal of like maybe it's like we solve this problem for somebody, right? Like, and here's one way that we do it. Or if you have a million users, you hit a milestone. It's like, oh, we solved this problem for a million users. Like they all these stories can tie back into like what is the actual um, goal at the end of the day. What's the actual goal for your message, right? The actual message. Um, see how we done it. I mean, having good relationships with people who are in the industry and the who will report on you is a good idea, you know, so that you can talk to them. Well, yeah, so they'll write about it. So you can send them stories, right? Like it's good. I mean, I think we did a lot of that initially, especially through just networking and meeting people. And, they're always looking for interesting things to write. So it's good to like know them and say, hey, here's something interesting to write. And here's the main points of like what we're doing. And here's why. And I think you'd be surprised at how many reporters will write about what you want them to, right? It's not, most journalism is not like extremely investigative journalism, right? So like if you spend time, like if you communicate, your message across to people that and a lot of times they'll write about it. It's not like a big, it wasn't hard for us, I guess, to generate much interest initially. Their advice on getting traction. Um, okay, well, I mean, one thing is that I would say, as you should make sure that when you're getting traction, like there's an ultimate goal in mind. Like I guess it might be easier for a lot of other people, but for Justin TV, we kind of like the site evolved and we didn't know what we were really building. It was kind of like we were building something and like people showed up and used it and more people showed up. But it's very important that like you actually have an end goal, like, or at least that's something that I think is like, we didn't do until a little later on, was to say like, here's what we want people to use the site for. Like, here's what we want to be like, and that was like really helped clarify and define like why we were working so hard on getting traction. Like we were working on getting traction for this, but like when we started off, we didn't know what this was, right? We were just working on kind of building something really big. Um, so it was really helpful for us to like actually sit down and like think like what are we building and like why is it, what purpose does it serve, and then like really define that as a goal. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on the interview.